All
right, Yvonne, it's all you.
Welcome, everybody. We are so happy to be here with you. We're so excited. February is here and is the beginning of a new month that brings the opportunity to show love and care for all of us. And what a wonderful opportunity. I am so excited, and I would like to start by celebrating how amazing we are because we choose ourselves today and we made plan to be here. And well, why don't we take a minute to appreciate how amazing we are because we have accomplished the beginning of 2022 through hard work and going through challenges, showing up in the world and our different roles as professionals, as mothers and friends and daughters, sons, different aspects. We have covered them all, and we are here today because we care, because we want to show love to others. And the way we do this is by starting loving ourselves first. So let's take a moment to appreciate who we are and what a wonderful opportunity to be here and learn more about self-care. So what is self-care? Self-care is a deliberate choice. It's a gift to ourselves with people, places, things, events, and actions, opportunities to recharge our personal battery and to promote whole health, body, mind, and spirit. And with this in mind, why don't we start talking a little bit about our current self-care activities? Maggie, what do you have for us? What are your current self-care activities? Maggie is an amazing person that is joining us for the second time, and she is a person that has a lot of experience in breath work, yoga, and relaxation techniques. And she's here with us to share a little bit of her experience and her knowledge, along with Mariela, Dr. Mariela Diocaris, who is here with us also, and myself, Yvonne Mesa. We are part of the Restore Health and Wellness Institute. So Maggie, why don't you help us and get started with what are the current self-care activities you're practicing?
So we were talking about this the other day, what we do, and I have just been kind of starting. I have a 19-month-old, and I feel like you lose, and it doesn't take a baby to lose sight of taking care of yourself. We all do that if we work too much, or if we're in depression or whatever, like we kind of lose sight of taking care of ourselves. And so I started just recently, about a month ago, because my baby started sleeping through the night, most nights. So trying to get up early. There's a big thing with Ayurveda that I studied in yoga teacher training about getting up with the sun. There's something to that. That sounds awful to me usually because I am an IL. But when I forced myself by volunteering for 6 a.m. yoga classes on Monday and Tuesday, I teach yoga. And those are my best days for the rest, like, because I feel like it sets me for the rest of the day. I'm energized and excited. So that's what I'm trying to do on the other days. It doesn't work every day, but get up early, make myself a cup of coffee, try to move a little bit. And that is basically all I have at this point. I have started to try to do a nighttime routine as well. Trying to take care of myself and my skin and whatever, but sometimes you're just too exhausted or there's other things to do. So it's small steps. So getting up early is my big first step. What about you girls?
I'm with you.
Well, how early is early, Maggie?
So
you said with the sun.
So through Ayurveda, I'm a kapha. So my time is 4:30, they say. I'm not quite there. I don't think the 4:30 is in this my realm quite yet. But anytime between 4:30 and 6, is kind of what they say. So on the mornings that I teach yoga, I get up at 5. And the mornings that I don't, I'm setting my alarm for 6. It doesn't always happen like that, but that's what I'm striving for. And I do feel better those days. So I have to try to listen to that clock, biological clock, that is.
Maybe you can put it in the chat where people can get some more information about that. Is
Yes.
there like an assessment that, you know, you can
Yes.
find out some more about it? That would be great. We also invite everyone that's on here, if you have any questions, to put them in the chat, because we are going to be paying attention to those as well. And we'll have some time at the end that you can ask us questions, whether it's in the chat or whether you would like to raise your hand and we can call up on you. Thank you.
I just put
Maggie.
a link up to a school that is an Ayurveda Institute. I'm not asking you to sign up for the school, but there is a lot of cool information on their website. They have, so that's the best resource, I feel like, because they do educate people in it. It's not just a blog. So.
Awesome. Okay. Sorry, Yvonne, I interrupted you. You were going to say something.
No, that's okay. No, I was just going to say that I completely relate to Maggie in that aspect. Waking up early has really made a difference in my life in regards to self-care. It really helps me to enjoy the moment. The house is quiet. It's all me. So I have different activities that I do, and I do start at getting up around 10 minutes before 5 so I can be ready to start at 5 o'clock. And it has really made a great impact in my life to get started with new energy, my meditation, my yoga, you know, just reading a good book and recharging my battery to get it started and change any challenge that the day might bring. So it does make a big difference. So that helps me a lot. How about you, Maria?
Yeah, I'm not a morning, definitely not a morning person. For a long time, I had to get up before the butt crack of dawn, which that to me is like 5 o'clock. And now that I'm in a different place in my life, my alarm usually goes off at 8. Most of the time, though, I'm awake by 7 or 7:30. But yeah, I am not a 5 a.m. kind of person. And usually I try to, like Maggie, do some type of movement, whether it's cardio, whether it's yoga, or whether it's just trying to get out of bed. Some days exercise is just not a thing. But for me, I like to end my day more with self-care than to begin it. And then I like to sprinkle, you know, whether it's a meditation, whether it's doing some reading, whether it's whatever it might be during the day. Whether, you know, it could be something as simple as 15 minutes. I was telling you ladies when we had our meeting on Monday the other day, which I think it's kind of funny. The other day I was just sitting on my favorite chair, enjoying a cup of coffee. And my son, who's 21, he comes over and he's like, "Mom, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just enjoying my cup of coffee. I'm just looking out the window, not on my phone, not on anything, just enjoying my cup of coffee." And he's like, "Are you sure that you're okay? You never do this." And I'm like, "No, you're right. I don't ever do this, but I just needed a 5-minute break with my cup of coffee just to enjoy it." So sometimes it's those moments, those very simple moments, that is definitely self-care. It helped me because I was struggling with something pretty difficult. And so just taking that time really helped me. And I think that that's one of the misconceptions that a lot of us have about self-care, is that it needs to be, we need to spend money, or it needs to be extravagant, or we need to, you know, leave our home to go do some self-care. And I think that a lot of times, not saying that that's not a good thing, because sometimes the biggest stress is being at home. And yes, it's obviously a good idea to sometimes take a break, but a lot of times the things that we need, the things that make us happy, the things that can help us engage in self-care are at home or are in our spaces already. So that's something to definitely keep in mind.
Sometimes sleeping in is also self-care.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So can you guys share in the chat, what is your self-care right now? What do you do that you consider to be self-care? And Yvonne's actually, you gave us a meaning, a definition of what self-care is, Yvonne?
Yes. It's a choice, it's a gift that you give to yourself with people, places, things, events, actions, and opportunities to recharge your personal battery and to promote whole health, body, mind, and soul. So it's very interesting. And yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just setting up some time, whatever works for you. I mean, self-care goes in different shapes and forms, and whatever you feel that fills your spirit, your body, and your soul, that's what you need. That's what you do. And if you're not able to wake up at 4 or 5, and if you're not able to do it on a specific day, it's okay. You find the right time, but the important thing, in my opinion, is to be consistent.
Yeah.
So speaking of consistency, so I don't know who else in the chat or whoever's going to see this someday bought a lot of plants during quarantine. I was one of them. And as I've regained society and regained a schedule, I've kind of I'm like, oh man, who's like, because I had so many plants and I had this routine, I was watering them all. So last night, as a part of my personal self-care, everybody went to bed and I took all of my plants and I watered them and I repotted a bunch of them. I found these cute little pots with the flower of life at Home Depot. And so I took some
Wow.
and I put fresh dirt in. I made a whole propagation station. I clipped stuff that wasn't feeling good. And it was so nice to get into the dirt and just feel, because there's a lot to that too. There's a couple studies out about the ions. I'm not a scientist, but the negative ions versus the positive ions in the dirt. And it does feel good to be with nature, even if it's in the dark in your dining room. It feels good to touch the soil and see life and help life, so that was something I did last night, and it did feel good to go to bed and be like, and I'm an accomplishment person too. Accomplishments make you feel good. So
Well, and in the chat, we have people sharing that they go on walks. They're listening to their favorite songs, reading and journaling. Yes, love it. Reading is definitely important.
I see meditation
Going
and
outside.
pranayama. That's good. I love
Yes.
that.
A cup of tea. Who's saying a cup of tea? Yes, absolutely. Expressing self-compassion. Yes, that's super, super important. Absolutely.
I enjoy my essential oils.
Yes, you are very big on that. Yes,
I love them.
Oils.
Yes.
Yes.
It really helps me in that aspect. I need to meditate. I use certain oils. When I need to de-stress, I use other oils. They really help me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we all need to, and we'll talk about it. And actually, this is a perfect opportunity. I'm going to pull up the worksheet so that we can start going through it. Hopefully you brought it with you. If you didn't, I'm putting a link to it in the chat so that you're able to pull it up. But I'm going to be sharing the screen so that we can start going through the worksheets. And let's talk about this. Let's talk about, what are we doing? What's working for us or what isn't working for us?
I love that setting an intention. That's huge, I feel like. So on the top right there, it's kind of small. But what do you want to do as far as self-care? Why do you think you need it? I think that's a huge thing. A lot of times, with business and other things, they say it's not what, it's why. So it's not what you do for your self-care as much as why you want to do it. So you can constantly remind yourself or continue to remind yourself of why you need to make the extra effort to be doing self-care.
So what do we want our intention to be today? Or what intention should we set?
stress relief. Everyone's there. I don't know.
Stress relief?
I don't
I'm
know.
okay
What
with
do you
that.
guys think?
It's a big one, yes.
Okay. Is everyone okay with stress relief? I'm going to pull up the chat so that I can see. Let's see if it's going to show me. It will not show me. All right, ladies, I'm going to need you guys to be looking at the chats. All right, so we're
Yeah.
going to be working on stress relief. There it is.
Yes, we're good. Rosa says yes.
Okay. Yes.
Self-love, self-care is important for our self-worth and self-esteem.
Very important.
Mhm.
So let's focus on one. Let's do stress relief because I think that most of us, can relate to that. To me though, if I were to do this, stress relief is kind of broad. What if we narrow it down a little bit more? In what area or what specifically do we want to focus on when we're looking at stress relief?
I don't know. Busy schedules.
Okay.
Or I don't know. That's me
Yeah,
personally.
we want to, yeah, no, for sure. For me, you know what my intention would be? And again, everyone can do their own worksheet, but for me it would be being more mindful and intentional about scheduling daily self-care. And that in itself can even be very broad. Maybe saying, you know what, every 2 hours, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. But I like to be very precise because that's just how I work. For some people, just putting an intention, a broad intention, they're able to be a lot more flexible than I can. So that's just me. All right, so that's going to be our intention for today's stress relief and looking at our busy schedule. Okay.
So what did we touch on for current self-care? Let me go back in the chat. Going for a 1-hour walk. Listening to music. Reading and journaling. Oh yes, and a cup of tea.
Definitely important. And it doesn't even have to be a cup of tea. It could just be your favorite beverage. What else?
Meditation, pranayama or breath work. And then another journaling. Journaling is something I haven't really gotten into. It's funny because I recently did it with a class I was teaching and I just let it all go. It was almost, I was like shielding it because I got a little, but it was good. It's a very good thing that I didn't know that. That's a really good one.
You know, I was reading, and for those of you that know me, I do a lot of reading articles and reading research because I love research. It was talking about the fact that usually, and for those of you that have had the privilege to go to counseling, your therapist or counselor has probably recommended that you journal, right? And so a lot of people really struggle with that. But let me tell you why we make that recommendation. One of the things that continues to cause us anxiety, and that's one of the reasons why we engage in self-care, is because we have reoccurring and racing thoughts all the time, right? All these thoughts are going in our head, whether it's things that we need to do, things that are stressing us out, things that we've done. And so we have all these things in our head. And so one of the reasons, one of the benefits actually of journaling is that you're putting it somewhere outside of your head. Some people call it a brain dump. Some people call it just whatever it is that you want to call it. And if you don't want to call it journaling, that's totally fine. You could just call it writing time. Call it whatever you want to, but the point is to get it out of your head and see it on paper, because maybe you guys can relate to this. When it's in your head, it seems like an impossible mountain, right? It seems like you have 5,000 million things to do and there's only 24 hours. Technically, there's not even 24 hours, about 12 hours of time that, you can actually be productive and do something. Once you put it on paper, or once you put it on a screen, or once you put it outside of your head, maybe when you start looking at it, you're like, you know what? This is not as impossible as it looks. Maybe this is not the huge big problem that I thought it was. It looks very differently. It's almost looking at it from a very different perspective. So that's one of the benefits of journaling, is it's not so much something that you have to do every day, but ideally it would be great if you could do it every day. But just seeing it from a different perspective, it's going to help you realize that, you know what, maybe it's not as huge as we thought it was. So just a thought. All right. Anything else that we want to add for current self-care activities? And you can keep adding in the chat any other self-care activities that you usually do. Oh, stitching. I think we had a participant, Preeti, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. She said she wanted to take up stitching. Okay. Well, we'll put that as we go down the worksheet, because from what you put on there, you still haven't done it. So we'll put it on there. No worries. All right. Maggie, do you want to talk to us about physical self-care?
Yes. So physical self-care, since I'm the yogi of the group, even I have lacked in my physical self-care. And that's what we're talking about here, like coming back in from the what have you that just ensued and trying to get back into normal routines. I just in the past few months have decided I'm like, if I ever write a book, it will be called bed yoga. Because there is quite a few things that you can do while you're still lying in bed. And yoga doesn't have to be this like, I gotta roll out my mat, or I gotta go to the studio. I gotta you just put the sheets down and just start breathing and moving. There's a lot of stuff that you can do there that it makes you feel good as you twist and turn a little bit. The connective tissue starts to release. There's blood flow. And it's just as simple as lying in bed and doing a spinal twist. It's huge. Does anybody else have a physical activity that they like to do?
You just mentioned it, sleeping.
Uh-huh.
Part of your physical.
You know what? That's true. Getting a good night's rest is self-care that we do not do very often. They recommend 8 hours. Who gets 8 hours? Solid. In addition to health, physical self-care, I want to touch on hygiene. There's a lot of us, being a new mom. Massage your body once a week. That's good. That's good. There is a book called Bed Yoga. Dang it.
Someone beat you to it.
Yeah. But I know, as being a new mom, I have, well, with a baby, there's been days where, or a few days where I've gone without showering or washing my face or like caring, and I don't think that just happens with being a mom. It's quarantine or depression, being busy. Like there's we don't take the time to floss our teeth, or and in Ayurveda there's a lot of stuff about hygiene, a morning routine to get ready for the day, like scraping the tongue so your tongue is ready to take on flavors and you want like the nutritious food that you're supposed to have. So I don't know if anybody else has had this where they've fallen behind on like the hygiene routine that they want. I think it's huge. Like somebody mentioned in the chat, pranayama or breath work. A part of our physical body is our internal body, where all of our muscles and our organs, everything needs love, right? So taking those deep breaths, slowing the immune system, or speeding up the immune system, slowing the nervous system. There's just like, that could be a whole, we just did a breath work. So guys, go back on the YouTube, and we did a whole hour on that. And then a connection. So physical connection is a huge thing. I talked already earlier about the earth, walking barefoot, grounding yourself, or touching a tree, or just being in nature is really, there's good studies on that too. I also like to read studies because I like to like back up what I say. But then also a connection with people. A lot of us have kind of fallen out of that. And there is also research on a 20-second hug. It releases endorphins and serotonin levels to actually bring you joy. And a 20-second hug sometimes feels uncomfortable once you're starting to count and do it. But it's human connection is huge. For
what about sex?
Yes, not 20-second sex though. But yes,
I would say, you know what, good sex, not just sex, but good sex is very important.
yes. I wasn't going to touch on that, but yes, human connection, sex is good.
Yeah,
Okay.
Anybody else have any ideas? That's when I started to do a meditation. Yes, it happened. Yes. So COVID lockdown, time stopped. It's true. Dancing is huge. Once I stopped caring what people thought of me, I would go out and I would call it cardio dance party. I was like somewhere, I turned 30 and I was like, you know what? I don't care what these people think. And I'd go out to the club, or not club, but like place where there was like dancing. And I would do like, do you guys remember Tybo with Billy Blanks? Mm-hmm. And I would do the Tybo moves like out on the dance floor. And we called it, like me and my cousin, a couple of my friends, we called it cardio dance party. It's so fun, like just to get out and not care what anybody thinks and just get your heart going. So thank you for that, Rosa. Like dancing is huge.
It is. And it's actually coming back as an exercise. You can YouTube dancing cardio workout, and there's a ton of people that are actually doing this. So yeah, definitely dancing, especially if you do it at home and nobody, can make fun of you. You're just doing it for the exercise. That's all that matters, is you're moving. So that's important.
Yeah, that's what Rosa said. She said she pretends that she's a really good backup dancer. I like it. We're all J-Lo at home,
Absolutely. Or in the shower. Yes, absolutely. So we actually have some good physical self-care activities. And I don't know how many of you guys have tried this, but now I have a new list of things that I want to try for sure. So thank you for, expanding my horizons on things that I can do for physical self-care.
All right. And then we'll try to move on to emotional.
Wow, emotional is a big one too. And it's not only the mind and the body, but also the emotional is so important. It's something that it's very easy to ignore, and then also get a wake-up call when you start seeing all the consequences when you're not connected emotionally, you're not doing your emotional self-care. But what is emotional self-care? Is caring for your emotional needs by identifying what you're feeling and moving forward in a way that honors yourself and those emotions. when our emotional self-care needs aren't met, how do we feel? We feel frustrated, burned out, depressed, sad. So it's so important to take care of that aspect as well. So one of the things that I have here for emotional self-care is to accept yourself as you are. Unfortunately, we're one of our worst critics, and it's important that we take a moment and listen to what we're feeling and look at the expectations that we have. Remember that we're humans and we're perfectly imperfect. So, what I use for my emotional self care and has worked so far are daily affirmations. And I think that that reminds me of who I am and what I want to be and keeps me on track. So, those daily affirmations are awesome for me. Another thing that I have is the internal audit, is thinking internally and see what are those things that are tearing you down, your feelings, those emotions. Identify the energy drainers in your life. It could be people, sometimes even social media. We're looking at so many things in social media that can drain our energy, bring us down, because we develop those emotions and feelings. Sometimes we have a lot of responsibilities, and that's also a drainer. So it's okay to say no when you have a lot in your plate and you reach your limit. It's important to care for your emotional self care. So there are some thoughts that they're called indulgent thoughts, emotions. It's kind of like when you're trying to be in a diet or trying to lose weight and you indulge on the little chocolate or cookie. You know it's not good for you, but you keep doing it. Kind of like that is those indulgent emotions. And what are those emotions? Those emotions are the ones that don't let you move forward and reach your goals. So doing a brainstorm, or what I call a brain download, and writing down what are those emotions that you are prominent in your day to day. Maybe you can take 3 of those emotions that you're feeling on a specific day and observe and listen to what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And that's going to help you to realize what are those indulgent emotions that are not letting you continue and reaching those goals. I think identifying your feelings is very important. Journaling is another tool that I use for my emotional self-care, because I think it's so important to honor those emotions. The thoughts that we have create those emotions. So thinking about those um, thoughts that are creating negative emotions will help us to move forward and heal if it's necessary to heal internally. Using self-compassion is a big one for me, because I think that I tend to be very judgmental with myself and I criticize or feel guilt. So being a good friend to yourself, being your best friend, I think is super important, and offer yourself the same grace and love that you offer other people. But give it to yourself. Um, Using kind words. Sometimes when we make mistakes, we are not careful in the way we speak to ourselves. So choose kind words, like the way you talk to your best friend, to fill that cup that's every day it gets drained. So that is also something that that helps me. And sometimes we have so many opportunities to help others, and we want to be superheroes. We want to be there for everyone, but we forget about our needs, we forget about our emotions, and it's important to ask for help. And that's another way to offer some self compassion. Create boundaries. It's a huge one. It's one of the best forms of self care that I found, and it really helps with managing stress. And if we're able to create those boundaries, we're going to realize that our relationships are going to improve. And it's a great experience. I've been trying to create some boundaries, and I highly recommend that as part of your emotional self-care. Give that grace to try again when moments don't go as you plan. If we are trying to start the new year and we have our agenda and we're full of activities and things that we're going to accomplish and goals, if things don't go the way we plan, it's okay, and offer that grace and love. Doing some self-talk is super, super helpful. So that will be a way of working on our psychological self-care. And who's best to talk about this aspect than Dr. Mariela Ducares? So why don't you help us with that?
I would
So
just, I would
yeah,
just
let's
add-
before we
sorry, I just wanted to add
go
on the
ahead.
last one real quick. So we talked about self-acceptance and understanding when something doesn't go your way. And I think just straight up acceptance has been huge for me in my life and my mental health, like, and not having too many expectations. If somebody cuts you off on the road, instead of getting angry, I always tell my daughter, well, they must have diarrhea. Like, and that is just like our little joke because, you know, they're in a hurry. They're, you know, and just coming to acceptance when things don't go your way. And, you know, somebody puts too much work on you at work. You don't have to like be angry. You can try to have a level head, accept the situation that's happening, and figure out what you need to do. Because when you're highly emotional about things, that's when we make bad decisions and things kind of go awry. So acceptance has been huge in my life. Just for emotional self-care.
Yes, absolutely. No, I think that you brought up some good points for sure. Having healthy boundaries and healthy expectations, a lot of times, and I know that most of us could probably relate to this, and if you can, please put it in the chat. We all have expectations, and as women, and I don't know if we have any males on here, and if we do, I apologize, but as women, we have a lot of expectations, whether they're self-imposed, whether they're imposed by our culture or our society or our families or whomever it might be, or whatever it might be. So it's almost like we have this ongoing list in our head of things that we should be doing, things that we can't do, things that we have to earn in order to do. And one of the things about self-care is self-care should not be earned. It's not something that, you know what, if you met all this criteria, for instance, if you exercised, if you took care of your kids, if you cooked, if you cleaned, then maybe at the end of the day, you'll engage in self-care. No, self-care is not a reward that you need to earn. Self-care needs to be a practice that you do every day. Just like you eat every day, just like you drink water every day, just like maybe you take a shower every day, self-care should be a part of that practice of it's something that I'm going to do because it needs to be a part of my life. It's not a reward. So having those healthy expectations, and I can tell you, oh, we do have a guy. Thank you for sharing. So, okay, so expectations is not just for women, it's for everyone. Yes, we all set expectations. So a lot of times, you know, part of that psychological self-care is being self-aware enough to understand what is a healthy expectation and what is an unhealthy expectation, right? And a lot of times as we grow in our self-awareness, getting positive feedback, constructive feedback from our circle, whether it's your partner, whether it's your friends, whether it's your family, that's going to help you grow in your self-awareness. Here's one thing to keep in mind when we're looking at expectations. If it is draining you, if it is sucking your soul, if you are feeling sick, it's probably not a healthy expectation, right? Same thing with boundaries, and we'll talk a little bit about boundaries. Um, Before we started the webinar, we were actually talking about boundaries and setting healthy boundaries in our personal lives and setting healthy boundaries at work. Um, you know, one of the things about remote work is that it's absolutely wonderful because the commute that you usually have is from your bed to the living room or your bed to your office in your home or wherever your commute is. But an unhealthy boundary is that because you're able to work from home, then you want to work all the time. That's not healthy either. And I'm not going to say a victim of this, because I am working on having healthier balance between my work and my home life. But setting a healthy boundary, like saying, you know what, I'm only going to work, you know, from 10 to 4 or whatever it might be. Um, those are healthy boundaries for work. Being able to say no to something that you know you're unable to do because you already have a whole bunch of things on your plate and you're really going to extend yourself in a very unhealthy way. Um, and then on the other side of that spectrum is saying yes to more things that are going to bring you joy, saying yes to more things that are going to bring you pleasure, saying yes to those things that maybe are a little scary, but maybe that's your opportunity to get out of your comfort zone and try something new that in the long run is actually going to benefit you. And then self-talk, and self-talk is actually huge. Here's one thing about self-talk, and this is what I tell um, the clients that I work with. When you are engaging in self-talk, and usually self-talk is negative, whether you want to admit it or not, usually self-talk is negative. But the next time that you engage in negative self-talk, I want you to do something really quick for me. That voice in your head, who does it belong to? Because usually that voice belongs to somebody that is very critical in your life, somebody that has criticized you, somebody that has probably done a lot of damage to you, psychological damage, emotional damage, or any type of damage. That's usually who that voice belongs to, which I thought is something very interesting. And we're going to talk more about trauma, not in this webinar. We're going to have a trauma series where we're going to talk about the effects of trauma and how that actually is a huge obstacle for most of us to engage in self-care. Other forms of psychological self-care is learning. I have resigned myself to the fact that I am a lifelong learner. I will never stop learning. And you know, one day when I win the lottery, because obviously I'm going to win the lottery, all I'm going to do is just go to school and get more degrees because I love learning. Um, and so learning is definitely a good psychological self-care. And the only way to learn is obviously not in school. Maybe you're the type of person that you watch a YouTube video and you learn something in 5 minutes. Reading a book, huge, huge. Not only are you doing it, hopefully you're doing it for pleasure, but you're also learning from something, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. If you're reading a fiction book, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, by reading a fiction book, you are actually learning about different people's perspectives. So, more of a reason for you to read fiction. Most people don't like to read fiction because it's like, oh, I'm not really learning something. Actually, you are. So there, you can tell people that you really are learning something. Um, Another thing when it comes to psychological self-care is understanding what you're in control of. And control is huge, right? And for most of us, the reason why we don't engage in self-care is because we feel like we don't have enough control of our day or our schedule in order to insert it in somewhere. So let me tell you this from someone that has studied psychology for a very long time. Control is an illusion. We actually don't have control. What we have is we are able to influence our environment. Um, Whether you want to admit it or not, you cannot control your spouse or your partner, your kids, your coworkers, your friends. You cannot control them, nor should you, because that's not a very healthy boundary either. But you can influence them, right? And so when it comes to control, one of the things that I would encourage you to do is to being start understanding that you don't have control and that you can only influence things. Because when we make that mind shift, it's going to help us see things a little bit different. Um, and so, again, it's about changing our mindset. It's about looking at things very differently than what we're used to looking at. And lastly, let's talk a little bit about spiritual self care.
We had a couple things in the chat too.
Okay.
Gratitude. And
Mhm.
JE talks about there's only two things you control: your thoughts and your reactions. And that's true.
Important. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. I agree with that.
Your
Your
second.
behaviors.
Mhm. Yeah, and gratitude's a huge thing. I read something about people who recover from disease, either cancer or things that are life-threatening. They're actually happier people because they're more grateful. There's a couple studies out about that, because they know that the small and the mundane are gifts. And that's so if we can take that on just a little bit in our day, just be grateful for the mess that your kids made because your kids bring you so much joy, or whatever, like crazy thing like that. But it's definitely it's been powerful for me too. So thank you guys for that, sharing that.
And for spiritual self-care, for me, spiritual self-care is when the activities we engage in to find and nurture a sense of connection to a high power and deeper meaning for our lives. Just as it's essential to nurture our body with food, it is necessary to also offer some nutrition to our soul to find wholeness. So for me, spiritual self-care is also a very important aspect that we need to take care of. And there are many spiritual paths and spiritual support systems. Some of us find that our particular spiritual path feels right and help us to find meaning and understanding for life. Others might find spiritual meaning through a blend of spiritual traditions. So we all have our own path, but regardless of what it is, a certain amount of effort and discipline is necessary for establishing and maintaining spiritual nurturance. So for me in particular, meditation is a very important part. And as I mentioned before, when I have the opportunity to wake up early in the morning, this is my special time to connect. I'm a Christian, and that time I dedicate time for prayer and meditation and reading the Bible and understanding more about it. That fills my spirit. And other things that I do is I consistently try to go to church. And when we were going through the pandemic, I felt like something was missing, and we couldn't have. We had online church sometimes, and that helped. But it's not the same for me. Going in person to church makes a different experience that I enjoy very very much. So during the pandemic, all the things that I used was taking walks and meditate while I was working and listening to music. That's another way to connect and feel your spirit, feel your soul. Establishing a sacred and personal space to connect with God or higher power or your own self is very special. So again, these activities or these practices that we do and help us to maintain good spiritual care is something that we need to practice consistently. So if I could add something to this would be do it every day. Feel your soul, whatever helps you to connect and be spiritual, feel that aspect of your health, do it. Do it as many times as you can. Because sometimes we put everything else first and we forget about the spiritual aspect. So practice it. I don't know if anyone has any other ways to practice spiritual self-care, but that has been my journey.
I would also like to add learning to this list,
Oh, learning. Yes.
because there's a lot of good spiritual texts out there. I was raised Christian as well, but as I delve into other religions, I start to kind of feel this overall global love. And there's a lot of parallel stories, and it's really great to try to learn about other people and fill your soul with stuff. So learning, I think, is something I would
And it
add.
can be in different forms. It can be through books. It can be through videos. Yeah, learning is always a great way.
And even just delving deeper into your own religion. Like, I never read the Bible that much as a child, but like going back and like I Google like things like, well, how does the Bible feel about this? The internet is a great resource, and it tells you, and you can really dig in deeper.
Preeti, you say giving in form of prayers. What do you mean by that? That actually sounds really interesting. Could you expand a little bit more what you mean by that? And also, our participants, if you want to put in the chat what kind of spiritual self-care you currently engage in, that would be great. But I'm curious to see, what is giving in form of prayers? Is that like sending positive energy to someone? Okay, so you pray every day at 9:09 and a.m. and 9:09 p.m. for world peace. Okay, I like that. Okay, so let's put that on here. How could we put this? Praying for the world or praying for others?
Yeah.
Okay. Sending energy to people who I know are feeling down. I think that that's pretty powerful. Yes.
Mhm.
Sending positive energy to other people. Yes. Definitely agree with that.
Win energy.
That's interesting. I have never heard of wind energy. Winergy. Wow, something new that I'm going to learn about now. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know what it is, but now I'm curious to learn about what it is. So thank you. Anything else that our participants engage in? Okay, so let's talk about what are some of your self-care obstacles right now. Sending positive vibrations and thinking about the person and sending all the positive affirmations and blessings. I love it. Yes, that's huge. I personally believe in that very strongly, sending positive energy to other people, especially when you don't have enough of it yourself. Receiving positive energy from other people is very powerful. And when your cup is full, sending it to other people, especially when they need it. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of my self-care obstacles. We mentioned some of them, right? Time. Would you agree time is probably a pretty important
Huge.
one?
Yeah.
Huge, right? Yeah. Finding the time to say, you know what? Yes, I'm important enough to be able to do this, and I should do it.
Obligations, responsibilities,
Yes.
or even sometimes made up responsibilities.
Yes.
I do that. I'll be like, honestly, the closet really needs to be organized. I can't do anything but that. I just come up with this stuff that's just not.
Yes. Procrastination.
Oh, that's huge.
Yes, absolutely.
Being unmotivated. And permission, giving ourselves permission.
Yes. We'll talk a little bit about giving ourselves permission and what that means.
And we talked a little bit the other day about the guilt and shame, and you were talking about the trauma and who's that voice in your head. Sometimes we can't give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves because there's something in our head telling us it's not right.
And that's a great
I'm
topic.
going to put on here, yes, guilt and shame is huge. But I know that nobody in this webinar today feels any guilt and shame when it comes to self-care, right?
For me, I should say, and I should admit that at first, for some reason, I felt guilty about taking time for myself. I mean, everybody else was more important than me until I was running out. I wasn't running on empty cup, and I had to force myself to give that opportunity and not feel guilty of taking that special time for me. So yes, I think it's a very important topic. In fact, I want to invite everybody here to join us for self-care part 2, which will be coming up soon in the month of April, I believe is scheduled. We'll send some invitations there, and hopefully you guys like what we're doing here and join us and follow us in Eventbrite and social media, so we can continue to be connected and we can participate in this part 2 of self-care session that we will have with Maggie again. And it's going to be especially about this topic, guilt, shame, and it will be very, very interesting. So join us.
One of the other things, and I know that Maggie and Yvonne, we talked about this as well, our cultural beliefs around self-care. I shared with both of you, and I'll share now. I did not grow up in an environment where I was taught to engage in self-care. My mom is the kind of person that she's constantly going. From the minute she gets out of bed to the minute that she goes to bed, she's cleaning, she's cooking, she's whatever it is, she's helping us, she's fixing, she's doing everything. And there's never, in fact, she's the kind of person that she's gotten better now, but she could not sit down to watch a movie because she felt guilty, like the kitchen needs to be cleaned, or I should be ironing, or I should be doing laundry, I should be, right? If we sit down, we think about the 500 million things that we need to do. And so it's taken me a long time to learn to give myself permission to say, you know what, I should not feel any guilt and shame around taking some self-care time. And in the beginning of this, I mentioned that it's actually ironic that I struggle so much with self-care because I actually did my dissertation on self-care. So I am considered an expert on burnout and self-care, and yet I struggle with engaging and making self-care my daily practice. So it doesn't really matter how much education you have in it, you're still human, so you still struggle with it. But definitely, when it comes to trauma, and having experienced trauma myself and working with a lot of clients that have experienced trauma, when you have experienced trauma, there is a lot of guilt and shame surrounding self-care, right? Because there is a thought that because you've experienced trauma, you are in victim mode, right? And victims don't deserve good things. You're a victim. You suffered something traumatic. You need to stay in that victim mode, and that's not healthy. And then when you do something nice for yourself, it's almost like saying, well, you went through a trauma and you don't deserve something nice, so you should not be doing something nice for yourself, which is a very unhealthy thought process. Um, I am here to tell you that you have to be very, very intentional about engaging in self-care, especially if you have experienced trauma. The other aspect of trauma is because you've experienced trauma, your brain, your body, a lot of times is triggered. And the way that we get triggered is through one of our five senses, right? Sometimes we're aware that we have been triggered. Other times we are not aware that we have been triggered. And I am here to tell you that when you are triggered, that's kind of your brain telling you that there's something wrong. Put it this way, when you cut yourself, let's say that you're cooking and you're cutting stuff up and you cut yourself, there's blood, right? You can see it. You know that there's something wrong there. So you see the blood and you're like, oh no, and you go and wash it off and you probably put some antibiotic and then you put a band-aid and you're good, right? With mental health, with our mental health, a lot of times the warning signs are there, but because they're not visual, because they're not so evident, we're like, oh no, you're fine. And we push down our feelings, right? And we say, no, we have to power through this and you're going to be okay. And so eventually they erupt. And the way that they come out is through an anxiety attack or through a panic attack or through not engaging in self-care. So if you need a good excuse, if you need a good reason to say, you know what, today I'm going to commit to self-care, it's because you're being proactive about your mental health. We don't want to be reactive, okay? So equate self-care to being proactive. Because a panic attack, an anxiety attack, that's a reactive, right? When you get one of those, you think you're having a heart attack and you're dying. So you go to the ER and the doctor's like, you're fine, nothing's wrong with you. You probably had an anxiety attack, right? Go see a therapist, go see a psychiatrist, go see. But if we want to prevent that, engage in self-care. These are things that you can do to be proactive. Cultural beliefs. I know that a lot of us, and please put it in the chat as well. Alicia, thank you for sharing that. She said she was going to iron uniforms while watching this. Hopefully you're just watching this. This is your self-care with us. But cultural beliefs, I don't know, you know, and please share in the chat as well. But Yvonne, Maggie, did you grow up? Did your caregivers, did your parents show you how to do self-care?
No, not for me. Hispanic is like you were saying, you know, we are moms and to dedicate ourselves to help our family, be there all the time. And everybody else is more important than yourself. So yes, definitely. I had to learn and develop that self-care is a very important part of health.
Yeah, I hung out with my grandma a lot when I was young, and she was a staunch Catholic. So if there was work to be done, you have to do the work. Like it was very, that was in, and she also said it was because she was German, that she was a work, but she also said workers should be scholars and scholars should be workers. But that was a message to the scholars mostly, I think, because she didn't do much scholaring, but she definitely was trying to tell a lot of us that, you know, get out there, rototill the garden. So yeah, we didn't get a lot of self-care as children or young adults.
Yeah. So again, it's about changing our beliefs and changing our mindsets. I like how JE put that self-care, for some self-care means being lazy, but it allows us to recoup. That is so powerful. Yes,
It's true.
I am with you. I feel like, you know what? There's so many things that I should be doing instead of reading. Because to me, reading is huge and it's a huge form of self-care. So yeah, instead of reading, I should be doing something that is more productive than being lazy, if you want to call it lazy. That's not it. You know, there are studies, there's actually research that encourages people to not do anything. It's okay to just let your mind wander. It's okay. In fact, I don't know what your thoughts are on doodling. Did you know that there are so many positive benefits to doodling? Google it. You'll see there's research. In fact, some of the smartest people in the world engage in doodling, and doodling has absolutely no point to it other than to just doodle, um, or just do nothing. It's okay. You know, we live in a world right now where we're constantly being bombarded. I personally believe that yes, there are good things about electronics, but it has also caused us all to become ADD because we're constantly being interrupted and distracted with our phones, with our electronics, with whatever it might be. And so we become ADD and we never have any downtime. So I encourage you, you know, 2-3 hours before your bedtime, turn things off, put them on silent. It's okay to let go of electronics. It's healthy. In fact, a lot of people do an electronic detox. Do it. Absolutely. Whatever works for you, do it.
We need to give ourselves the permission to disconnect and be just with ourselves, be recharging our battery for the next day.
Absolutely. So let's talk about what we're going to do to commit today. And I would really like everybody to participate in the chat. What are you going to do today to commit to do some self-care?
I'll put it in my agenda. I have to schedule it. Make specific time
Okay.
for me.
Yeah, the schedule is
Schedule
huge.
it with a pen.
Yes, the schedule is huge. That's also something that's an Ayurveda principle. The dincharya is a schedule of your day. So you have to schedule in that time for yourself. And if you don't have the schedule, a lot of us need it. Children need it. Being spontaneous is fun, but a lot of us just kind of get carried off. I know I'll get caught up in a project. Oh, I'm cleaning the kitchen. And then now I'm cleaning the walls and the cabinets have to be organized. And then 5 hours goes by and I didn't schedule it properly or set an alarm. So setting an alarm is huge.
Ooh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Telling Siri to help you set a reminder. Yes.
Yeah, everyone's saying
What
schedule.
else?
I like it.
Yes.
We're all in the same
We're
boat.
all in the same.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Perfect. What else can we do? What else do you commit to doing personally?
I think sometimes when we think about self-care, we think, oh, maybe we don't have the budget for it. When we think about, I would love to go on a retreat weekend and be all about self-care, but there's so many things that we can do that don't involve a lot of cost. So maybe if we brainstorm and write down those things that we can do, that would be amazing. Of course, if you can treat me with the retreat, why not? But sometimes we don't have $7,000 for that. But there are so many things that we can do, such as maybe prepare a well-balanced diet or for the week ahead of time. That could be an option. Like what Maggie was saying about gardening, it's super nice and
we're coming into spring, right? So
yeah.
Spring is when I come alive. I love vegetable gardening. I really and like I said, getting in the dirt and gardening is a physical thing, but then at the end of the season, you see the fruits of your labor, literally, you know? So that's like a huge, for me at least, it's an expression for a reason. It makes you feel good.
Yes. Alicia, go ahead. It's you, all you.
I'm gonna literally practice saying, I can't do this because I'm going to do this for myself. And I was trying to type it out, but I literally couldn't even find the verbiage because I was like, wanted to apologize. I'm sorry, I can't do this because I'm gonna do this for me, but I don't have to apologize. So I'm just gonna practice saying, I can't make it to that, or I can't help you with this because I'm gonna do this for me today. And I already have anxiety about it.
I know the saying yes or no, like we said earlier, sometimes it's
Yeah.
better to say yes and sometimes better to say no. As a people
Mhm.
pleaser, I get that. I say yes to things I should not say yes to. So that's good. Thank you, Alicia, for sharing that. I need to say no more often.
Or yes.
Or yes, if somebody invites you to something, don't and you feel like it
Yes.
would make you happier, do it.
Preeti is saying getting up at 5 a.m. Oh, you're brave soul. Sticking to
Or-
daily schedule, sun gazing. Nice.
I
Yes,
love the
I'm gonna put
sun.
that on here.
yes, I like all those things. And they're free.
Getting some sun. Yes, exactly. Sun
Vitamin
gazing.
D is huge for self-care. Why didn't we talk about that yet? Dang it.
Walking on the grass is also very good.
Such a huge topic. Yeah, the grass.
So going out in nature. Yes, we have more people that are raising their hands. I love this. Yes. I just need you. You can go for it.
To clarify what I was saying earlier, which also is something that I'm need to commit to, is when you were talking about control, there's only two things that we can control, is our second thought and our first reaction. And so our different internal voices may go off. And so we can choose either to think of something else. But the main thing I would need to commit to is not reacting to every situation, because sometimes we don't need to right then, and it causes ourselves stress.
That is so powerful. Yes, I definitely agree with you. You know, one of the things that we need to realize, and I know that I do this myself as well, not every problem needs a solution. Not every problem needs to be solved by you. Some things you just gotta let them be. Some things you just have to let them, you know what? Just let them carry out however they're going to have to be, play out however they need to be, but you don't need to solve every problem. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, absolutely. We don't need to take the problems of the world on our shoulders. We have enough to deal with. So again, thank you. I definitely appreciate that. I have had a lot of fun doing this. I don't know about you guys. I've learned a lot for sure, as you can see. And hopefully, you know, you're going to commit to doing some of this. We came up with a pretty big list. I know that I'm going to start changing my mindset to say, like Alicia was saying, I can do this, because I really can. It's about changing my mindset, shifting my mindset to say, you know what? I am a priority. I am important. I need this as part of my daily practice. So thank you to everyone that has participated today. Yvonne, Maggie, any last thoughts before we let people go?
Yeah, I want to also encourage everybody to continue learning and showing love and care for your body. And hopefully you guys can all join us for the next meeting that we have. Follow us in Eventbrite, and you'll see the next events, especially the one that we're having on February 16th will be great. So thank you so much for making yourself a priority and being here today.
And Preeti looks like she wants to say something. So go ahead. It's all you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really loved this session and I learned a lot. And so many things I had in my mind, in my brain, I wanted to do it. And each one of you, when you said it, it was like reinforcing it, and reminding me that, yes, because I always use, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. But I love this session and I want to say thank you so much. And I'm joining from Sydney, Australia. And I loved
Oh, wow.
and it's amazing. I really loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please join us. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of webinars coming up. So definitely encourage you, sign up for them. Join us. We're always fun, as you can tell. Yes, invite a friend. Absolutely.
Don't come alone.
Or come alone, just come.
Yes. I'm following you on Eventbrite, and I would definitely join in. I loved your company. I love this presence. I love this group. Thank you so much. I felt so lucky, and it was as if meant to be here. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. It was nice to have you. Thanks for all your
You.
good input.
Yes, absolutely. Maggie, any last thoughts before we let people go?
No, I don't think so. It was just fun to be here. And thank you, everybody, for incorporating your thoughts and feelings. And thanks for the love.
Absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great night. I will be emailing you a link to our YouTube where this is actually going to be on there as well. And hopefully we'll see you guys on February 16th. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good
Thanks.
night.
Thank you.
Good
Bye.
night.
Good night.
Bye bye.
Bye.